everybody, and welcome to Tuesday. It's good to have you here. We have some brand new exclusive information tonight on the mysterious disappearance of Riley Strain. This one is a real head scratcher. It is so perplexing. 6'7" and 160 pounds, and he's just vanished into thin air. But tonight, new exclusive details about what a family saw as they passed him on the sidewalk, the conversation they had with him, and what they heard he was saying on a cell phone to some friends. Not only that, new exclusive information on yet another person who called the police with a tip about information regarding a homeless man wearing what looked to be the same shirt Riley was wearing. And that tipster rebuffed. This would be the third time now we have heard about tipsters trying to tell the Nashville Police Department what they know about Riley's disappearance. Critical information, important information that we at NewsNation were able to vet. These people get thrown into cold case voicemail. I'm going to speak to one of those witnesses that we've now spoken to twice. It has been, let's see, how many days now? 7, 8, 9 days since she called the police with her tip about serving someone in the homeless community wearing that shirt, clean underneath a dirty hoodie. Have the police called her? You'll find out. She's going to join me live in just a moment. And then also there's this. I have gone on a lot of vacations where I have sort of been fraught over leaving my kids with a sitter or a nanny or even a family member. But there is a woman in Cleveland who had none of those concerns. Nothing at all. This was her 10-day vacation in Puerto Rico. The pictures were awesome. Vacation looked amazing. It's hard to tell that there's any concern in her mind for the toddler she left in a crib alone with no food and no water for 10 days. I am not making this up. Those are not photos from another time. Those are the vacation photos where that little girl, Jalen, was left in a playpen for 10 days so mom could be on the beach and hang with a guy and have some cocktails in a pretty red dress. Spoiler alert, Jalen didn't make it. Wait till you hear what the judge had to say to Jalen's mom. Wait till you hear where Jalen's going to spend the rest of her life and how and why. Then another story that just had us so perplexed, a father who shot 3 of his little boys dead execution style, literally chased them to their deaths, pulled them out of their mother's arms even, shot mom's hand as she tried to grab the gun to protect the little boys, and then blabbed about it to anybody who would listen. The arresting police officers, the detectives who questioned him, the social worker, the nurse. Those 3 babies said he planned it. Step by step, we had the details of how it was carried out. I had to read it 3 times because I couldn't believe the sequence of events. I couldn't believe it. I have it for you tonight. But then I also have this. The judge tossed out the confession. I get it. It's a loophole, but it makes sense. Didn't get Mirandized the right way. But it might not matter a lick. Because when you hear the sequence of events, you know the witnesses provided it. And the witnesses will testify. All right, so let's start here. If, God forbid, someone you love should go missing, you'd be distraught, you'd be shattered, heartsick, you would be all those things, but you shouldn't be frustrated, and you shouldn't be disappointed by the police response to your tragedy. And yet that is exactly how Riley Strain's family and friends are saying they are right now. 11 days into what they call their struggle with the police in Nashville. They spoke with reporters today about what police have told them about the investigation and what police have not told them.
We feel like they've handled it well. We know that there's an excessive amount of information coming into them that they're having to dissect. You know, it's hard as a parent, as we are now 10, 11, 12 days into this, and we're trying to, find Riley, come up with, an outcome here. And so, yes, as the days drag on, we are frustrated. We know they're doing their job. We've seen what they've got,
We know they're doing things that we haven't been informed about. That's probably with any investigation like this. There's details that they're not going to share with us that we're sure they're working on too. We don't know what all for sure exactly what they've done as far as searches goes. We don't know some of the information, but that's not to say they haven't done it.
That's mom, dad, and stepdad. Mom could barely keep it together during that news conference, understandably. I'm not even sure I can remember a missing persons case that's gone on this long with so much new and compelling evidence piling in every single day, but completely independent of the police. Yeah, you heard me. Tons of evidence that the police don't seem to know about or care about. And so it is tonight. We now have another witness who says they not only saw Riley the night he disappeared, they talked to Riley. And we have seen this witness before. The man says that's him right there, and his family. They're crossing from Church Street to Gay Street in this security camera footage where Riley is seen stumbling down the block in that very recognizable shirt. You can just spot it a mile away. The man says his family noticed Riley, specifically his condition, and that his wife asked Riley, and I will quote, "You're not driving tonight, are you?" End quote. That's the reason this man says Riley actually stops and looks back. The witness says that Riley laughed and then said to them, quote, "No, I can't even walk a straight line," end quote. And here's where the really interesting part is. The witness says that Riley was on his phone at the time, and he was talking to at least two other people on speakerphone. The voices on the other end said something like, "He's fine. We'll get him there. Just keep walking straight, Riley." And a moment later, the witness was getting into his car when Riley walked by and then stopped and then threw up. Afterward, the witness says this, "I asked my wife if she saw him walking, and she said yes. I was worried that he could have fallen over, but they saw him walking." The witness also had something to say about this video just minutes before. It's the one that shows Riley running along the sidewalk and then falling into a pole right there. Some viewers thought it looked like he might have really hurt himself, but the witness tells us that he did not look hurt when they saw him and that Riley was not bleeding when they saw him. They wanted the family to know that information. Witness wanted to remain anonymous, but reached out to us at NewsNation. And why? Because they called the Nashville police to try to tell the Nashville police all of this. And they too were sent into the voicemail of the cold case department. We've heard this now 3 times. Police did eventually call this family back, they told us. But then there's also the case of the homeless couple living below Gay Street on the riverbank. They say that they saw Riley almost fall down the embankment. The man said this, "We heard a commotion. We looked back up. He almost fell over. The last bush right there caught him. He was very, very, very intoxicated. I never seen anybody stumble that hard before." Couple said they did not go and check on Riley because someone else who was already there said reportedly, "He's just drunk. He's okay." But Riley clearly wasn't okay. He was not okay for long because minutes later he disappeared and his phone went silent. But Riley's family said today that his phone was not low on battery power before it went dead. And all of this raises so many questions. Exactly how many people did Riley encounter and talk to that night? How many of those people have the police actually interviewed? Who were the 2 people Riley was talking to on the phone? His friends at the bar, maybe somebody else? A family friend now says that Riley and his frat brothers from Missouri visited at least 2 bars the night before Riley was kicked out of the 3rd bar. When he was kicked out, it was called Luke's 32 Bridge. A friend also told our Elizabeth Vargas that Riley was ironically, quote, trying to do a good deed just before being kicked out of Luke's. He said he couldn't go on and tell us what that was, but that we'd find out soon. Don't know what that good deed was, but it certainly is mystifying. Riley was also texting that night with a girlfriend. And when she asked how he was, he responded with the cryptic text, "Good lops," L-O-P-S. And some people have been speculating that he was dictating and may have been trying to say got lost. Still unclear. Another question, who was the person at the top of the embankment with Riley who told the homeless couple, he's okay, he's just drunk? And why did Riley's phone suddenly turn off even though it had plenty of power? And what about that bank card? What about that bank card? Riley's bank card ended up on the riverbank near that homeless camp, kind of like right in that homeless encampment amid all their debris. And it was sitting there, presumably in the dirt for 8 days, but it was clean as a whistle, barely even any dust on it. It was found on Sunday by 2 volunteer searchers who were combing through the brush and the debris.
She yelled, "I found his card."
Yeah, I did.
And we immediately...
And my stomach dropped. And then my innate reaction was to be like, let's keep looking. Like, I didn't know what to do. She was like, well, let's call somebody. And I was like, well, let's keep looking.
And that raises yet another question. Why did those 2 women, on TikTok find Riley's bank card amidst the belongings in a homeless encampment instead of the police finding it? The homeless couple who saw Riley said they told police that Riley had been there, same exact spot that you're looking at, that video right there. Yet the area was still left open and unattended for anybody, TikTokers, to walk through. We also heard today from the United Cajun Navy, which has been searching the Cumberland River. And I want to bring in David Flagg, who's the Navy's National Director of Operations. He was an organizer of today's press conference with Riley's family. David, thank you so much for being with me right now. Let me ask you this. I have been so curious about that river behind you. Can you give me a feel for what that river's like? Is it deep? Is it dark? Is it murky? Is it wide? Is there a heavy current? Bring me up to speed on what you're dealing with.
Pretty much yes, and yes. It is deep. It is dark. It's rather murky. The water level has dropped 4 to 6 feet since Riley went missing, and the flow rate has significantly reduced as well. But as any river, a reduced flow rate is a relative term. It's slower than it was, but still capable of sweeping somebody away if they weren't careful.
Well, that's my next question. When you say that the river's down, is that helpful? Because there's presumably more embankment that you could see, and if there is a body, it might be easier to spot.
That's correct. Theoretically, yes. It's exposed some more of the rocks, some more of the brush, things of that nature there. If there were a body in the river, it potentially could have surfaced and come ashore where it would be more visible now.
And how is it that you're determining? I'm just looking at the pictures of divers in the water. I understand they started diving Saturday. Where do you even begin diving? What is it that would plant that flag and determine that's a good spot to start looking?
Well, some of these divers are private individuals, private volunteers who have, of their own volition, showed up to try and help locate Riley. The police department, Nashville Police, has also had their dive team in the water. And primarily it's where is the last place that this person was seen. You have to have a starting point. In this case, the last place that Riley was seen was along the walk on Gay Street here, and with his debit card being found where it was, that gives a logical starting place for dive teams, boats with sonar, potentially cadaver dogs, anything of that nature. But you do have to start somewhere.
I'm seeing some pictures also of a canine that's in one of the boats. How does that work? I can't imagine a canine on the water, but is that canine just being transported to different areas of the embankments and then doing a quick scan of an embankment and returning to the boat?
No, not necessarily. A lot of the cadaver dogs, matter of fact, most cadaver dogs are capable of picking up a scent of a cadaver that is in the water. So it's a little bit of both. The dog is, trained to pick up that scent in the water, on the water, as well as on land.
So that's fascinating. First of all, I wanted to ask you if if there are any other dogs other than just cadaver dogs, maybe a scent dog looking to follow Riley's scent on land. I'll get to that in a moment. But back to the cadaver dog. If the cadaver dog is in the boat on the surface and there's a cadaver many feet down, can the dog actually detect that?
Well, I don't know what the dog's specific limitations are, but the short answer is yes. If there is a body in the water, cadaver in the water, the dogs are capable of detecting that scent.
Do you know of any other canines who might be tracking? Family might have been able to provide something of Riley's with Riley's scent so that they could let them loose in that very small area. This is what, I'm so frustrated. The area where Riley disappeared is small, and it would seem to me you could flood the zone and accomplish a lot on land as well. Have you seen any evidence of tracking dogs?
Well, I personally had some discussions with the investigator from Nashville PD on this, and we discussed the possibility of using tracking dogs, and I also spoke with a local dog trainer who also trains tracking dogs. And it was determined that because of the time lapse between when Riley went missing and the circumstances around it, that a tracking dog would probably not be effective. The other part of that equation is that this riverbank, what you're showing in your picture there, looks relatively flat, relatively easy to traverse, and nothing could be further from the truth. I went down the riverbank with two girls who found a debit card today, and it is absolutely treacherous. I doubt that you could get a dog down that embankment safely with a handler. As a matter of fact, we've had people come forward to volunteer to do a search in that area, and I've decided to turn them away unless they have specific search and rescue training, because it's that treacherous. I'm not the best guy that's in the best shape in the world, but I had trouble staying vertical down there.
It is distressing to hear that, David Flagg, because it makes me think if you're inebriated, it would be very easy to tumble down into that water. And as you mentioned, faster moving at the time that Riley disappeared. David Flagg, thank you so much. I hope I can get you back on the program to update us as you continue to work.
Sure thing. All you have to do is ask.
Okay, well, that's going to happen for sure. David Flagg from the United Cajun Navy. He's the National Director of Operations. Why does it seem to be so hard to report relevant, credible tips about Riley's disappearance to the Nashville Police Department? Multiple witnesses, including Riley's family, have said that their phone calls go straight to voicemail for the cold case unit. One of those witnesses is Sabrina Martin. She works with an organization called Souls United that helps the homeless. And she says she saw someone wearing a distinctive shirt just like Riley's 2 days after Riley disappeared. And yet getting the police to take her report was like pulling teeth. Sabrina Martin joins me now again. Sabrina, this is, I think, now the third time that we'll have spoken. I asked you last time if you had had a call back from the police, and now we're at day 11. I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm going to cross my fingers. You're going to say, yes, they've called you back and taken the detailed report that you gave us on this program, including the description of the homeless man that you saw wearing what looked like Riley's shirt. Have you heard from the police yet?
I have not heard from them yet.
It's astounding to me, and I know you made multiple attempts after being shuffled into voicemail. You went and circumvented Nashville Police. You called Crime Stoppers, and you were at least able to give the report. What's your next move? Are you going to keep trying? Are you going to go and bang down their doors at headquarters?
I'm hoping that by getting this out that they will follow up. I have emailed local news stations as well as the police station. I searched multiple posts. So the first post I saw was from a local news station with the telephone number. And I called, which was our non-emergency number, and they transferred me to a voicemail. After leaving a voicemail, I called a different number that the lady had given me in case I was disconnected, which went straight to another voicemail box. The next day I went searching I live about an hour away, so I went searching the next day on another social media post and then found the Crime Stoppers line. That lady did seemed to take me seriously. She did take all of the information, but I have not heard anything back. She didn't seem to be aware of Riley's case when I first spoke to her. I did have to spell his name, give her the date he was missing. I read it directly off of the post that I got the phone number from, but she did get all of the information. I did leave my name and telephone number on 2 voicemails as well as with Crime Stoppers. Even though it was anonymous, I gave my name and phone number and still haven't heard back.
It's making me crazy just to hear how much work you've done that's just been so unappreciated. Again, if anyone from the National Police is watching us right now, Sabrina Martin is with an organization called Souls United. You could find her really easy or check your voicemail because she's got some great information. I just want to also say this, Sabrina, this is new. You apparently know of someone, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone in the homeless community, a man called in to a show that you had called into with this information, said that he'd walked around the homeless camp nearby and asked about the man that you witnessed wearing the shirt that looked like Riley's, clean underneath a very dirty hoodie with the rest of his clothes dirty. And the man said that he found people who said that the guy you'd witnessed told the others that he had found that shirt. He had just found it, and that's why he was wearing it. And he called into the tip line. He left that information yet again, voicemail. Do you know any more details about this person who said I think I may have just, you know what, I just lost Sabrina's Zoom. That's unfortunate. Let me just repeat that. Sabrina had originally called into a program to tell them that she had seen that shirt on a homeless man. Another man called into the program to say he'd gone to that homeless encampment. He'd asked around about the man wearing that shirt that looked like Riley's. People remembered that guy wearing the shirt and said that guy wearing the shirt told them he'd found it. Yet the tipster could not get through to the police. And Sabrina yet has not been called back. So let's just say this. Normally I say anyone with information, call the Nashville Police Department. There's the number, 615-862-8600. But I'm not going to lie. At this point, I think you should call me because everyone's going into voicemail. And it's very frustrating. I'm not going to lie. This is very frustrating. Tell me in my ear where the best address is, guys, where I can get the audience to Banfield Tips at NewsNationNow.com. Banfield Tips at NewsNationNow.com. Just send your tip to us. Call the police as well. But if you go into the cold case file and that voicemail, Banfield Tips at NewsNationNow.com. Hopefully we can get a little more attention. In the meantime, following Riley Strain's footprints, our own Evan Lambert traces the exact steps that Riley took on the night he disappeared in downtown Nashville. The bar he walked out of, the bridge he walked towards, and every important location in between. Are there clues that we are all missing? Follow Riley's path next. Maps are important, and security cameras and critical witnesses, all that's invaluable. But to really understand the last known wanderings of a college student who hasn't been seen or heard from in 11 days, you have to be there. And my colleague, Evan Lambert, is. He is live in Nashville tonight. He spent part of the day retracing Riley Strain's steps. Evan, I'm so glad you're doing this because even with the maps, I get confused. Can you walk me through Riley's path?
Yeah, Ashleigh, with those several data points on the map, it is confusing, especially if you don't know the area. And so we did spend a good part of the day walking around. And what I can tell you from the area here by the river where we are, where Riley Strain was last seen, to really where this story starts, at the first bar that he was asked to leave. It's really only about a 15-minute or so walk if you're walking directly. Of course, we don't know the exact route he took because we have little pieces on surveillance video, but it is not terribly far away. But we took a look at all of those points a little bit earlier. Check it out. 9:35 on the night, Riley Strain goes missing. According to Luke Bryan's bar here on the corner of Broadway and 3rd, he was asked to leave after being served 1 alcoholic drink and 2 waters. Then 11 minutes later, a surveillance camera at downtown Smoke Shop catches Strain running and then falling near a pole in the parking lot. He gets up and continues out of the frame. A minute later, another camera catches him cross First Avenue North to Gay Street. At this point, he's less than half a mile from Broadway. And finally, our last pictures of Strain are here. Body camera video catches him interacting with a Metro Nashville police officer and appearing to be fine.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
This is just across from the Cumberland River, and take a look at how steep this is in this area. It's basically a cliff, some 30, 40 feet down to the water's edge. This whole area is covered with litter, debris, trash, homeless encampments. This is where TikTokers say they found Strain's debit card. It is nowhere near, about a half mile away from his hotel, which is off in that direction, nowhere near where he's seen walking and his last cell phone pings are. And so it's very clear, Ashleigh, where the last pictures and the last cell phone pings are. Riley was not anywhere in the direction of the hotel that his friends thought he was going to make it to. Ashleigh?
Okay, Evan, I have this one question for you. In that last part of your stand-up, you're standing under a bridge, right? And that's typically where a lot of people would congregate because there's shelter. So there's a lot of homeless people who use, areas under bridges. Was it a walkway, though? Like, I was struggling to find out, would Riley have ended up walking under that bridge, or would he have had to decide to leave a walkway, scramble down to some people down there to have a chat? Like, how would he have ended up in that spot if he was?
Yeah, so where we are, there is a sidewalk that goes around, and there's a balustrade, and then essentially a cliff, as I showed before. 30, 40 feet down to the riverbank. Now, there are a couple other areas of land a little bit over that guardrail, so maybe 15 feet down, there's some land, and then you can walk further down. But it's not designed really for people to go down there, but some people do, and that's where some of the people that are experiencing homelessness, that's where their encampments are, in those woods, just over the guardrail. So you would have to be very intentional, or just, really not having coordination at all, inebriated to the point where, you might be sitting up and potentially fall and then possibly, roll down even further. But it is really a dramatic. When I got here, I didn't understand, just how far it is from where we are standing, where Riley was walking in that body camera video, to the river embankment all the way down. And it's almost like you'd really have to try, but there is a way that if you were so inebriated that, we saw him falling, it is possible that he fell and continued to go down that direction. Under the bridge, there is another bridge that he would have potentially crossed underneath after that video, but that's just along this sidewalk right here. So no stairs or anything to get down there.
It's mysterious. I mean, just perplexing. Evan Lambert, thank you for that. Just want to let our audience know it's 20 minutes, like less than 20 minutes from the moment he left that bar to where his cell phone, went out. He disappeared in less than 20 minutes. If you have information about Riley's disappearance, I'll say it again, call the Metro Nashville Police Department, 615-862-8600. But then I'm going to give you a backup, because that doesn't seem to be working for a lot of people who are calling with tips. Right there, Banfield Tips at NewsNationNow.com. Drop us a line, Banfield Tips at NewsNationNow.com. Call the police first at that number I gave you, 615-862-8600, but then back it up and let us know. And we will, once again, do our best to put the pressure on the Nashville police to call people back when they're trying to help you. Help us help you. Still to come, she will be locked up for the rest of her life. But her tiny concrete cell will seem like a luxury compared to how she treated her own little toddler. What kind of mother packs her bags for a 10-day tropical vacation, leaving her baby alone in a crib with no food and no water? 10 days! Wait until you hear her excuse. And wait till you hear how the judge responded. Next. Things to think of when planning a vacation, not the least of which, who's going to look after the kids? A lot of us labor over that decision. Some of us decide not to even go because of it. But not Crystal Candelario. Nope. Crystal didn't hire anybody to babysit her 16-month-old daughter, Jalen, when she decided to pack her bags for this nice Puerto Rican vacation. Instead, she just plopped Jalen into her crib and hopped on a plane for some tropical time. 10 days she was gone. 10 days. Jalen was in that crib alone with no food and no water for 10 days. And Jalen did not survive her mother's vacation. The medical examiner said she died of, quote, starvation and severe dehydration from pediatric neglect, end quote. She weighed just 13 pounds, and she was found in a crib full of feces and urine. Her mother pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and child endangerment, but there was no trial. You'd better believe there was a sentencing, though. And yesterday, a judge in Cleveland gave Crystal Candelario life in prison, no shot ever at parole. So what was Crystal's excuse exactly? She told the court that no one understood what she was going through. But she also happened to mutter on a jailhouse call that it wasn't as though she picked up a gun or a bat. That might be why the judge said this during sentencing, and I quote, "Just as you didn't let Jalen out of her confinement, so too you should spend the rest of your life in a cell without freedom. The only difference will be the prison will at least feed you and give you liquid that you denied her." And then he said this.
These three experienced, very talented, hardworking individuals all called this one of the most horrific cases they've ever seen. You could have found someone to watch her while you were gone.
No estoy tratando de justificar mis actos.
I am not trying to justify my actions.
Pero nadie sabe cuánto yo estaba sufriendo.
But nobody knew how much I was suffering.
Y por lo que estaba pasando.
And what I was going through.
Todos los días le pido perdón a Dios y a mi hija, Yailin.
Every day I ask forgiveness.
I care nothing for her. What you were going through? Do you wonder what Jalen went through? Starving? Alone as a 16-month-old? Alone in the dark for 10 days? It probably took her 7 days to die that painful death. I want to bring in Sarah Azari. She's a trial attorney and NewsNation's legal analyst. Sarah, just when you think it can't get worse, you get a story like this. Why would she even plead, by the way? Like, what was the point? There was nothing she could plead down on this.
Yeah, Ashleigh, I'm wearing white because I agree with you on this story. This is a horrible, horrible crime. It's just not defensible, and that's why she pled. People plead for different reasons. It's to not take the risk of a trial. It's because there is a factual question for the jury. I mean, what is her defense? She claims that this was because of her suffering or emotional distress or whatever she was going through, but all of the facts here are to the contrary. She went on vacation. Apparently there was a post about her vacation. This was not an accident, like she claims. This was absolutely intentional. So, I think that she obviously made the right choice by pleading. And the sentence she got is not a sweet deal. She got LWOP. And I think the only reason she didn't get the death penalty, even though Ohio is a death penalty state, is because we don't have the aggravating factors. This was a homicide by neglect. And comparing it to, let's say, Lori Vallow, for example, where there were actual acts and things done to the child. We didn't have that here. Look, I've got all kinds of clients. Some people have a really bad heart. She has a really bad heart.
I hope that life is not easy for her. She says, no one knows what I'm going through. Sister, no one knows what she's going to go through when she ends up in that prison and she ends up in the penitentiary. I just wonder how the other mothers will treat her. Sarah, I got to leave it there. Thank you for that. I appreciate you being on. And God, I hope we don't have to talk about something like this again.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see Sarah, as always. I do have to tell you about this. You may remember another horrific death of a child. It was an adult child with disabilities in Louisiana. Lacey Fletcher, severely autistic, a woman so cruelly neglected by her parents that when she died at age 36, her body was literally fused to a couch that she'd been on for years. She was covered in maggots, ulcers. She was literally deep in her own waist, and some of her bones were exposed. Lacey's mother and father pleaded no contest to manslaughter charges last month, but tomorrow, Clay and Sheila Fletcher are going to learn what they're going to get for it. Their punishment could be upwards of 40 years in prison. We'll let you know tomorrow. Make sure you join us tonight. We'll have that reporting for you. Coming up next, he is arguably the last confessed murderer on earth you would ever want to see walk free. Police say a father of 3 little boys shot them all dead while terrorizing their mother and their sister. He confessed to the whole damn thing. But now a judge said the words can't be used against him. And when you hear those words, the play-by-play of what he did to these little guys, you're going to want to be on the jury yourself. That's next.
We have got to go! We bring you the real in-depth school info.
What were you thinking?
I don't know.
Ding dong.
Homes.com.
Of all the crime we deal with on this show, there may be nothing worse than the murder of a child. Strike that. Murder of a child by a parent. Just went over it. But Chad Dorman, he's in a category unto himself. He admitted to killing all 3 of his own little boys. We've been covering this story for a couple of months now, including a legal twist that just happened last night. An Ohio judge ruled that Dorman's confession can't be used against him at trial because the police didn't read him his Miranda rights the proper way, and they ignored his multiple requests for an attorney. And what exactly did Dorman admit to? The details in the court filings are nothing short of harrowing. Prosecutors say in June of last year, Dorman came home early from work, and he asked his wife and 3 kids to join him in the master bedroom for a nap with Daddy. Clayton Dorman was 7. His little brother Hunter was 4. Little Chase was 3. But instead of a nap, Dorman had other plans. He allegedly got out his rifle, and with the family present, he pointed it at one of the boys and then just shot him twice execution style, killing him right there. The boy's older sister was watching TV in the family room, but she witnessed the shooting, and she saw their father chase one of the other boys out of the house and into the field nearby, firing at him as they were running. And he hit the boy from a distance, but allegedly kept on approaching. And as soon as he got to close range, he shot that second child up close, killing him. The sister then picked up her 3rd little brother and began to run, trying to protect that little brother. But as they got near to the road, Dorman caught up with them and then demanded at gunpoint, police say, that she put the boy down. He tried to fire again, court papers say, but the rifle was now empty. So at this point, this 3rd little boy runs back to his mother, who is now tending to her other child who's now dead in the field. The sister keeps running the other way towards a fire station, screaming to passersby that her father was, quote, killing everyone.
911, where's your emergency?
There's a girl running down the street saying that her stepfather is killing everyone in her family.
And what did the female say to you?
And she says that her stepfather is killing everybody in her house.
Can you tell how many people have been shot?
I think 2 children.
All right, we've got help on the way. If you could just try to stay inside so that you're safe.
Back in the field, Dorman approached his wife, who was now holding and shielding their last surviving son. He then bit his wife while trying to pry that child away from her. And then she tried to get the gun away from him, and she actually had her thumb over the barrel, but Dorman just fired anyway, forcing her to drop the little boy she was protecting. I mean, he shot her in the hand. And then police say he trained the rifle on that 3-year-old and shot him in the head. Later, he allegedly told police, quote, I did it. Take me to jail, end quote. He allegedly said he'd been planning the massacre for months. and was so obsessed he hadn't slept in the previous 3 or 4 days. I'm joined now by Jesse Weber, lawyer and also NewsNation contributor and friend of the show. Listen, it upset me when I first heard, Jesse, they weren't going to hear the confession in court, that a jury wasn't going to hear it. But with all those details that I just read, presumably they came from witnesses, presumably witnesses who would be even more compelling on a stand, I'm guessing.
Coming from the mother, coming from the sister, having surviving witnesses, having witnesses to a murder. We don't get that in trials often, Ashleigh. So that's incredibly compelling testimony, but it's also coupled with the physical evidence, the ballistics, the injuries to the children, the injuries to the mother, the ballistics. If that's consistent with their stories, my eyes, that's a slam dunk case. You don't need a confession to find him guilty.
I mean, thank God, because I was actually pretty worried about that. When I look at the pictures on the screen beside us, the 3 little kids, they're so cute. And then I see that body cam. There are big black squares on the body cam because we're covering up the bodies of the babies, the dead children. It is so heart-wrenching to see this, that square there. Yeah. How is a jury supposed to maintain stoicism? How is a jury supposed to gird for something like this? Because they will see this video without the black boxes. They'll hear it all. They'll see it all.
That's exactly right. Look, we deal with this problem all the time in trials across the country. How does a jury just look at the facts and the evidence and not bring emotions into it? It's really tough. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to automatically find him guilty. I think they will in this case. But remember, the death penalty's on the table. And you know, one of the things that I'm reminded of, Ashleigh, is I've seen atrocious crimes before. Talk about the Parkland school shooter. Can't get worse than that. And they actually voted in that case not for the death penalty, for life in prison. So even given the gravity of this case, sometimes jurors, they tend to put their emotions away and they just look at what the evidence and the factors are, which is what they should do. But they're human beings. And when you're dealing with the death of 3 young, innocent children like this, it can be very hard to find a fair and impartial jury.
I mean, look at these pictures, right? And I'm sure that there are more. I mean, these are the pictures we have, but how about the pictures that mom probably has and would be happy to give to the prosecutors? Jesse Weber, as always, I so appreciate your insight. Thank you for that. Thank you for getting me off the ledge, too, knowing that it doesn't matter. The confession doesn't matter. Thank you for that. And we'll see you again shortly, I'm sure. That is all the time I have for tonight's show. But make sure you come back tomorrow because we've got that sentencing for Lacey Fletcher's parents. And I cannot wait to hear if they get the max, which is 40 years. Stay tuned, though. Cuomo is coming up next.
All right, I'm Chris Cuomo, and tonight we do have to get after it. We got breaking news on the border. The Supreme Court has refused to intervene in the federal case against Texas, okay? Specifically, their controversial new immigration law, which means that Texas technically, as of right now,